Thank you very much.
Having been at the executive table for a few years now, what weighs on me much when various agencies are summoned to meetings by the Prime Minister, I often use the opportunity to ask for update on a number of projects across Jamaica, whether the building of schools, bridges, community centers, etc. And often the answer from the principals of the agencies is that the matter is before the Procurement Commission, and it is to go to a subcommittee, and a subcommittee, then it is to go back to the main committee. And I ask, by when is this process expected to be completed? And the answer is invariably a year and a half. And I say, which process? And they say, well, the process of getting the approval. It was somewhat of a culture shock to me in government, and has been that way for a long time, in terms of the arduous process of getting projects which are in the best interest of Jamaica completed. I have long been of the view, sir, that a NARA type bill is in good order. But as we proceed with debate on this bill, I think it's important that a particular context be highlighted. It was on the afternoon of Tuesday, October 28, 2025, that Category 5 Hurricane Melissa hit Jamaica's shores. It was a particularly traumatic time for many Jamaicans, including in St. Elizabeth, St. James, Westmoreland, Trelawney, and St. Anne, as they observed their communities being devastated and their investments, including livestock, wiped out. This was a natural disaster of an unprecedented scale that hit our country. The truth is, Melissa accounted for many lives. Many communities are still devastated. Townships are in a state of major disrepair, and the damage across Jamaica is unmistakable. The effort to restore electricity and commerce has been commendable compared to what has transpired even in developed countries. But we are at a point, sir, the government of Jamaica has to take additional decisive action. For too many years, efforts to develop Jamaica has been delayed, or efforts to develop Jamaica have been delayed by processes which pander to vacillation as opposed to auguring well towards achieving positive outcomes which fix major problems. The work to restore lives and to build back communities is impatient of such processes characterized by vacillation and temporization. And that, sir, is among the factors why we on this side strongly support passage of the NARA bill. We support passage of the bill because we recognize that Hurricane Melissa, having accounted for 56% of GDP, that means that the damage is so extensive that operating at normal pace, it would take approximately 25 years, conservatively speaking, of normal government of Jamaica capital expenditure to address the damage. And that would mean nothing new is built. It is because we recognize the scale of the damage, the lives and the communities impacted, and the painful inefficiency of current processes to facilitate quick action on a large scale, why I submit to this Parliament that the bill is worthy of strong support. I wish to comment on a few narratives in the public domain, including the submissions of some opposition senators who spoke before me. Opposition Senator Small Ferguson, suggested that NARA does not have a clear statement of objects. He was at pains to point that out. I wish to make it clear that Jamaica, it is not unusual, Senator Morris, that legislation in Jamaica does not have a standalone purpose clause. And I believe that's what the Senator was alluding to. The title, the operative provisions, and the memorandum of objects and reasons already provide a concept which is called interpretive guidance. So it is important for that issue to be considered in that context. And if you assess judgments by courts across the country, legislation is interpreted holistically, not solely by allusion to a purpose clause. So I know a bit of inexperience in terms of treating with or assessing legislation might have contributed to the Senator's submissions, but I invite the matter to be considered in that context. Because look at it. The bill clearly establishes post-Hurricane Melissa reconstruction, resilience building, economic recovery, and infrastructure coordination. Those purposes are embedded in the legislation. Therefore, in summary, sir, the absence of a standalone purpose clause does not create legislative or legal uncertainty, nor does it invalidate the legislative intent of the Act. I believe that is to be made patently clear. Another matter raised by the opposition during the submissions to the debate, Senator Morris questioned what he suggested was the absence of the modular houses which the administration had indicated intention to purchase to make whole Jamaicans who have been dislocated by Hurricane Melissa. Just yesterday, Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Andrew Holness, called various agencies to a meeting, including the NHT, the new social housing program, and ODPEM, and we were advised that thousands of houses have been purchased. 924 modular houses are in fact in Jamaica. An additional 700 are on the way, and 700 additional will follow. So Senator Morris engaged the vernacular and asked where the houses them there. The answer is hundreds of houses are right here in Jamaica, and the administration will fulfill its commitment to make whole Jamaicans who have been dislocated by the ravages of Hurricane Melissa. And I said this to you, Senator Morris, this modular houses program will not be plagued by the corruption which was embedded in Operation Pride, where hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayers' money were pilfered and a PNP activist was taken into custody. The administration of Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness, we take matters of accountability and probity seriously. The modular houses program is subject to rigorous oversight. So, Senator, you asked where the houses them there? You have had your answer within a few minutes. The matter of the alleged absence of accountability mechanisms has been put forward today by a number of opposition senators. And Senator Hill alluded to it, so I won't spend much time on it. But the whole notion that NARA is not subject to accountability mechanisms is plainly untrue. This is false. Totally false. The legislation is subject to the intervention of the duly constituted auditing authority in Jamaica, the constitutional authority, the Office of the Auditor General, which may intervene and have access to the accounts at any time. Senator Hill said it, but it is worthy of repetition. NARA's activities are subject to the oversight of Parliament, including the PAC and the PAAC. Senator Hill spoke about the accounts being kept in keeping with the standards of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica. There is also a provision for a yearly internal audit to be conducted by a certified auditor. The entity is mandated to submit to the minister as well a corporate plan with estimates of expenditure. And NARA is accountable to the public. It is bound to keep a register of initiatives with pertinent details. That register is to be gazetted and open for assessment by any member of the public. NARA is also subject to oversight from JAMROC. As we heard earlier in the debate, a model of oversight which has worked well when we consider what EPOC brought to the table in challenging Jamaica, economic times to Jamaica. And an eminent individual, Professor Peter Blair Henry, has been appointed to give superintendence to JAMROC. I found the comments by Senator Maziki Thame earlier concerning Professor Blair Henry, very unfortunate. I don't believe that this chamber should be used to denigrate the hard work, the integrity of hardworking Jamaicans. I think the senator might contemplate her comments and come to a reasonable view that she should recant what I contemplate as an unfortunate move to disparage the character and professionalism of Professor Peter Blair Henry. I outlined a bit earlier some of the accountability mechanisms which will govern NARA. I want Parliament to note that beyond the assistance of an auditor from a prominent private sector entity, these guardrails and oversight mechanisms I alluded to were not in place when a lesser natural disaster, Hurricane Ivan, hit Jamaica, and the PNP administration appointed an Office of National Reconstruction, which expended billions of dollars, with a CEO who was also its chairman, and who answered to the then erstwhile Prime Minister of Jamaica, Percival Patterson. And importantly, sir, this is not to smear or denigrate the work of the ONC, but to put some context to some of the current arguments about oversight. I've heard the argument put forward by the opposition, who have suggested that NARA could create a platform for corruption. And some well-thinking Jamaicans may genuinely have this concern. So I will address the well-thinking Jamaicans. The truth is, sir, there is no system, no law across the globe where there is absolutely no possibility of abuse of process. There is no system, no law. However, that is why we have systems of checks and balances in place. And we have outlined a number which pertain to the NARA bill. And that is why we also have anti-corruption institutions, which this administration has supported by way of major funding, and indeed has passed legislation to make some of them autonomous and made the country's anti-corruption laws stronger. And a careful analysis of our political history will disclose that whenever allegations of malfeasance supported by evidence arise, this administration, led by Prime Minister Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, has taken swift and decisive action. it had its best anti-corruption score as far as the assessment of international agencies is concerned under this administration of Prime Minister Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew. And all this compared with the bemusing habit of the opposition, where to this day, when their members misconduct themselves, they circle the wagon and make excuses for misconduct. I'm confident, sir, that the Naira bill will be subjected to good governance. Absolutely. And will get the job done. To Jamaica, I say, judge us by our actions. So I have addressed the concern of what I consider well-thinking Jamaicans who might say, is this bill paving the way for corruption? This argument, though, about Naira paving the way for corruption has been not only proffered by the opposition, but a few individuals and organizations who sometimes the media refer to as civil society. But a few of them are really supporters of the opposition. These organizations, sir, and individuals were eerily silent not too long ago or issued wishy-washy statements, Dr. Monroe, wishy-washy statements with absolutely no call for decisive action when it was disclosed that a company owned by a senior PNP member was implicated in a multi-million-dollar tax evasion scandal, which continues to deepen. The Jack Den UHWI scandal that is being investigated by a number of law enforcement agencies. But some of these organizations and individuals have been most loud and vocal, Professor Monroe, on the Naira bill, a bill that has not yet been passed into law. And they argue that it is because they are concerned about corruption. Some of them were here with us earlier today, sir. So having addressed the genuine concern of Jamaicans, to those who do not appear sincere, I say, your inconsistency is loud. Your partisanship is clear. And that is why you have a credibility deficit. And many well-thinking Jamaicans do not take you seriously. The opposition and some of their supporters have peddled the view that this Naira bill is creating unusual powers for the Prime Minister. We heard Senator Thamer raise a spectre of authoritarianism earlier. You'd have Jamaicans believe that unusual powers are being arrogated onto the Prime Minister via this bill. That is false. That narrative is absolutely untrue. Senator Dr. Honorable Dana Morris-Dixon did a very good job during her opening of making this point. But there are a number of agencies in Jamaica, including executive agencies, where the de facto CEO or managing director is answerable to the minister and submits financials, and the minister submits those financials to the parliament. So this notion that there is cause for undue alarm, yes, that this is an unprecedented step, is totally false. There are agencies which have existed with similar lines of accountability, even under the PNP administration. So again, the argument about the Prime Minister arrogating unto himself unusual powers, as proffered by Senator Thamer, is false and an attempt to mislead the people of Jamaica. I allow to Jamaica Customs, the Passport Immigration Agency, the RGD. Let us be clear, sir. There is nothing unusual about the chain of command on the Naira. Absolutely nothing unusual. And I want to make that clear to the people of Jamaica. So, Another narrative advanced by the opposition in the public domain is the matter of a joint select committee.
Yes. Ready, Harry?
Yes, a joint select committee. And I must say, sir,
Go ahead.
the inconsistency of the opposition on the matter of a joint select committee to give superintendence to Melissa expenditure is amazing. It is staggering. Our country will recall that not long ago, the Prime Minister proposed a special select committee, a joint select committee, to consider Melissa expenditure. The opposition said no and declined to nominate members to serve on the committee. In November, Philip Halliwell was quoted as saying that such a committee is unnecessary.
Can you hear that?
Because it will take away from the powers of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee. That was the posture of the opposition when Dr. Holness suggested a joint select committee. Yes? The argument, sir, at the time was the urgency of the situation meant a joint select committee is not necessary. And they said the Parliamentary Oversight Committees are sufficient. Yes. Yes. That was the argument. Now, when a special purpose legislative vehicle to fast track the reconstruction process has been put forward, the opposition has changed their minds and they say we are demanding a joint select committee. We heard Senator Ramon Small Ferguson adumbrate along that line earlier today.
Just to delay stuff.
They say let us delay for another 4 weeks or so and put it before a joint select committee. You know, sir, I observed the debate in the lower house. I listened very keenly. And a member from Eastern Westmoreland, the PNP's Dr. Dayton Campbell, drew for the good book during his contribution to the narrow debate. I submit that he drew for the right book, but he read the wrong verse.
Which verse did he read? Wrong verse.
The scripture, sir, that may be appositely used to describe the opposition's posture on this matter of the joint select committee is James 1:8, which says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. I put it to you, sir, that communities in Jamaica and the entire post-Melissa restoration effort cannot afford and in fact should not be detained by the palpable flip-flopping and instability of the opposition PNP and their surrogates. Should not be detained. And to make matters worse, it was not long ago that the opposition called a media conference and lamented what they alleged this is the slow pace of the effort to build back communities in Jamaica after the devastating impact of Hurricane Melissa. One opposition MP got into character, evinced tears, and accused the administration of dragging its feet while communities suffer. Of course, the administration was hard at work and on course, well down the wicket, in crafting the Naira bill, which, let me highlight again, is a special purpose legislative vehicle intended to build back communities and help Jamaicans restore their lives quickly. And now the administration of Dr. Holness has brought that bill to Parliament. The same opposition MPs who were lamenting a delay, they are now advocating for additional delay. 4 more weeks to consider the matter, they say. Again, sir, I call out the posture of the opposition as insincere and not in the best interest of the people of Jamaica. I will not spend much time on comparing legislation across the world the NARA bill because I believe a good job has been done at that by members of the lower house and the upper house, including the submissions of Senator Dana Morris Dixon, who led this debate. But a newspaper article where one Sayer Wilson said Jamaica's NARA bill marks a decisive shift from reactive recovery to proactive institutionalized building, positioning Jamaica as an emerging thought leader in disaster governance, captures the situation perfectly, Senator Brown. Yes, this Wilson, public commentator, eruditely said, in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa, NARA embeds centralized coordination, performance accountability, and integrated planning across ministries and agencies, ensuring that the recovery processes are structured, coherent, and aligned with national development priorities. End quote. Wise words, sir, way beyond her years. Incidentally, Miss Wilson is the daughter of a thoughtful and patriotic Jamaican, the erstwhile PNP General Secretary Maxine Henry Wilson, whose temperament is far removed from some of the toxic tribalism that has entered the submissions of the opposition members regarding this debate. In closing, sir, I think there is a wide recognition across the globe that governments are elected to lead and that the executive must retain their authority to execute policies further to its mandate given to it by the people. But from time to time in Jamaica, anytime moves are made to put in place decisive measures geared towards changing systems which have not worked, there are some across society who say, let us water down legislative and executive power. Yes, and if they have their way, they turn the society into a coalition government.
Absolutely.
Yes, with unending demands for consultation and efforts to dilute executive authority. We believe in consultation, but there will come a time we will have to make a call. And for one reason or the next, these demands are made anytime the Jamaica Labour Party administration is in office. But you know, sir, I feel compelled to say this to the Parliament. I have observed Dr. Holness at work, the minister who piloted this bill. I have observed him successfully work at building Jamaica and ensuring that policies enumerate to the best interest of the people of Jamaica. And he has had the courage to ensure that systems which do not work are decisively adjusted. No doubt, perhaps our region's most progressive, aware, and skillful navigator of difficult times. Importantly, an implementer of good policy. He delivered for the people in navigating COVID-19 when the administration delivered the most massive care and welfare package in the history of independent Jamaica. Dr. Holness and his cabinet delivered for Jamaica in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. And despite efforts to block measures intended to save Jamaican lives, Dr. Holness took the crime bull by the horn and led a suite of policies which have seen the murder rate plummet and have saved thousands of Jamaican lives. At an important juncture in the life of the nation, sir, as far as the NARA bill is concerned, I wish to say to Dr. Holness, we have consulted far and wide, including overseas, concerning what works and what does not work in a time of disaster. But ultimately, sir, the mandate is yours. And our administration, which has been given the mandate by the people of Jamaica, owing to the events which occurred on the 3rd of September 2025. It is us who they expect to deliver positive outcomes in times of crisis. Let us move forward, sir, press ahead, and deliver for our people. This NARA bill is a decisive step in the right direction. And a few seconds before the expiration of my time, I'm pleased to indicate the bill, sir, has my strong support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Henley. Senator Scott Motley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wondered why you asked me to read the prayers this morning. And I thank you for doing so, because I hope it has put me into a proper frame of mind to be kind, forgiving,